Welcome, folks. This is Eddie Carson, and you're listening to Race Matters here at WJOP LP Joppa Radio, Newburyport, 96.3. And I'm excited because I have a really very special guest who's in the studio this today. And we're going to talk about youth, art, and activism. And we're going to get to, we're going to lean in a little bit and get to know my guests just a little bit and learn more about them and the things that they do, the things that are percolating in the minds of young folks. And I'm excited about this guest, particularly for the first thing I'll say is they're officially the youngest guest I've had here on Race Matters thus far, and that's exciting to me. So I'd like to introduce you folks to Zan Argueta. Zan, say hello to folks.
Hello, everybody.
How's it going, my friend?
It's going well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? How are your holidays?
How my holidays? They were quite good this year. I stayed home, and sometimes it's good because we have extended family.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm one of those people that go out to get food from every single household, and this year it was not the case. This year we stayed home. It was quite peaceful.
You know, and there's something about staying home, being in a hood, kind of chilling just a little bit. You know, I didn't travel. We didn't go far at all. And again, on one hand, you don't get a chance to engage and sojourn with other folks the ways you want to. On the other hand, you ever gone on a trip, and I know you have because you've traveled all over the place, but you go on a trip and then you get in that trip, whether it's work-related, vacation, and you come back, and the thing that you're thinking about is, I need a break. I need a vacation from my vacation. You ever you ever felt that way?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So you were talking about staying home. Where's home for you these days?
That's Lawrence, Massachusetts.
Okay. And then you have folks all over the place in different parts. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yes. I have family in El Salvador. I have family in Brookline, Cambridge, and Austin, and Jamaica Plain, and I have family in California. I have a lot of family.
Yeah, folks all over the place. So you said El Salvador, and I know you've been down there before, and that's what you've shared with me. What's El Salvador like?
Salvador, very different than here.
All right, go for it. Come on, enrich, educate us, educate folks who are listening, educate me.
Yeah, El Salvador is a country in Central America, and it's very small in comparison to other places, right? But despite how small it is, it has a lot of culture, a lot of people, and there's what else can I say about El Salvador? I love it there.
Yeah, you do.
There's a lot of sun.
Well, yeah, I imagine that. I mean, it's got to be about, I don't know, 28 degrees outside right now in chilly Massachusetts. When you think about going home, going down to El Salvador, what are some of the things that you love doing when you're down there? You mentioned a lot of richness and culture. What are some of those small things that bring you joy when you're back there?
Some small things can be, I think, everybody has this collective feeling that we love food. Everybody in the planet loves food.
Well, okay, real quick, I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna pause you real quick. Tell me, you got to delve into the food because I'm a big food person myself. Such as, what do you like eating?
Such as, okay, I like eating yuca. I like eating plantains. I like eating pupusas. That's like the national food of El Salvador, pupusas. I like eating tamales, and every time I go to the beach, I have to get a fried fish with some salad on the side.
Is it a whole fish?
Yeah, whole fish.
Yeah?
Yeah, you eat the
Do you ever put any of this together and all of that good stuff? Do you flavor up the fish? And
yeah, of course we do. And then sometimes you could take the whole family to the beach, and my uncles sometimes they have connections, so they rent out like the buses, and it's not like the buses here that are just all funky and they just like you're going from one destination to the next curve, you know. Over there it's like you hop on a bus, there's music, and the buses are colorful, and your destination's also colorful. colorful, and that's what we usually do. We take big trips as a family down there, and we travel to the beach, or sometimes we go to the like we call it campo, which is it's the rural side of El Salvador, that's a city, and sometimes you have like wherever your family might have land. And sometimes you have a home there. Sometimes you just have the land.
Right.
And you travel there on the little trucks. People on the back side of the truck, the whole family with everything, meals prepped, a big, what's called like bowls for making soup, like a big bowl like this, and you make a little fire. You start cooking it up with the family. That's what it's about.
A lot of folks are congregating around this, or are you talking about a few? We talking about what, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8?
No, we're talking about like a good 15, like.
Oh, okay.
Like people, minimum.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I get that. You know, when I congregate around black folks, right, we always seem to have a lot of folks who show up, especially if they know there's food. Right? One of the things about my mom is she is a very generous sister. She, they'll whip up some stuff, and the next thing you know, we have all these dishes. The next thing you know, there are no dishes left because people are kind of adding food and different flavors to their plate, and they're leaving. They're just not bringing the dishes back. I don't know if you've ever experienced that before.
Yeah, of course, that happens. I think for us at home, we always have like half of these fit and half of these don't fit, and where do these come from? It always happens.
Changes the trajectory of a lot of things. So. You have El Salvador, right? And then your other home is Lawrence, Massachusetts. What's Lawrence like?
Lawrence, well, it's a city in Massachusetts, and for people who don't know, about 30 minutes away from Boston, and it's a place where there's a lot of Hispanic folk, Latino folk, and there's Central American folk, there's Caribbean folk, there's people who are Italian. There's a lot of people who have immigrated into the city, and that's something that we say proudly. It's a city of immigrants, and that's what it is for me. It's a home.
I mean, one of the things I know about Lawrence, it's quite diverse. All right, and it doesn't look like a lot of parts of Massachusetts, as we know, particularly making up predominantly people of color in that community too. So that being the case, tell me about the food in Lawrence.
Oh, food in Lawrence. Well. Ooh, there's a lot of people who are from the Dominican Republic in Lawrence, and so. Almost every other corner there's a bodega and there's a barber shop, and they're all quite good. I think that's something that I appreciate from our community, is that we have access to food, and through these bodegas, these small corner stores, around every other neighborhood, you can walk to the street and just grab what you need. And that's part of what makes the community. That's how you see your neighbors. And I'd say there's also some Guatemalan places that are good, some Honduran places, some Puerto Rican places that are quite good. But I love me just walking to the store, grabbing what I need, coming back.
Well, I mean, you mentioned barbershops and stuff, and as you can tell looking at me, it's been a while since I've been to a barbershop. It's been a long time, and I walk in there and they're like, "Oh, brother, all that hair. Let me trim your hairline. Let me kind of cut that down a little bit." I'm like, "No, and keep the clippers away from me." So I understand that all too well. So, what do you do, Zan? Tell us a little bit about you. And for folks who are just chiming in, this is Race Matters. I'm Eddie Carson, and I'm here with Zan Argueta, who is kind of informing us on their culture, their background, and the work that they're doing now. So tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing.
Right now, I am currently taking a gap year. I graduated this past summer and from high school. And right now, I'm currently working with an organization called I Learn America, and this is a national youth program that it helps students in school and outside of school to write about their identity and to make art from it. And that's part of the work that I do. I also work with Elevated Thought and another program that's in Lawrence, actually. And we do tons of work for the youth, really.
So, in thinking about that, and one of the things we wanted to really talk about a little bit, particularly the artwork that you do and how that art really symbolizes not only just identity aspect, but of course this form of activism and the beauty that's found in art and everything too. So you're primarily a photographer, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about that. Tell us about some of the best shots you've ever taken, and what does that mean to you? And I know I'm putting you on the spot because you're like, well, come on, brother, I got a lot of great shots and a lot of things that I've done. But kind of think of a few things that you've done that has particularly captured your imagination.
All right. I think the last project that I was just really proud and touched my heart was a project I worked for. The last project I did at Elevated Thought, which was we worked on public works, public art, and part of that means that the art that you make it's gonna be outside, and when it's outside, it's for everybody. It doesn't mean that it's private. It's gonna be like locked up away somewhere, or it's gonna be in a museum that you have to pay an entry for. No, it's gonna be somewhere where everybody can see it on their daily walk, on their daily journey. And that photo, it was a series of photos that I made. It was I think 4, and we got to put it outside at one of the playgrounds in Lawrence, and it was a photo of. It was supposed to be nostalgic. It was a photo of my little brother, and he has quite a good amount of friends. He's 7. I think he has more friends than me. And they're always playing outside. They're always like, oh, like, let's get Timmy from down the corner. Let's get John from out, around the corner. And I took a picture of them like knocking on my apartment. And the apartment that I grew up in, and that's how I grew up. I grew up in Lawrence, and part of where I live, there's a lot of apartments. Excuse me. And we were as children, we're always trying to find out, who else lives around, who else is there to play with when everybody else is at home working and nobody's home. That's the type of picture that I took, and I took it of my brother, but it was really almost a narrative of my youth as well.
So if I were to walk into a room or a space like the one we're in here, maybe your home or a studio that you're working out of, and I were to see a piece of your artwork, what are some of the central messages in the work that you create that you want people to learn from when they look at that work?
I think the reason I love to take photos and I love to share them with people is because it really captures a moment. And that moment, it's not just like, I'll take this picture and it'll become part of the zillion of pictures in my photo album. No, it's about, for me, printing out the picture, and it's having the picture in front of you sometimes and seeing like, oh wow, like I'm documenting my reality, our reality, and not everybody's gonna see this if I don't share it. And that's what really pushes me to do photography, because people have to see what's going on. People have to see me. People have to see my friends and my family and my community. And if I don't show them, like, who will? If you don't go out there and take those pictures, who will?
So if I were to take a picture of you right now, and I don't have any type of photographic skills, I mean, most likely I would probably do something like take a picture of you and accidentally cut off your head, or maybe cut off a part of your ear, right? I mean, I just struggle with some of those things. You should see some of the selfies I take. They're pretty horrific. They're awful, particularly when I'm with a group of folks. It's like, brother, you left me out, and that wasn't intentionally and everything. If I were to take a picture of you and hang it up, tell us what that picture of you would mean. What is it about you in that photograph that you can educate us about who you are within your identity in terms of the way you think about the world, about art, about being young at this point here in the 21st century?
I think I'd bring it back to when I was a little kid, and I used to think, like, they'd ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I used to have dreams of okay, well, people say I could be the president, but what if I was the dictator? What if I was one of those dictators in one of those countries, but instead of being a bad dictator, I was a good dictator.
A benevolent dictator.
A benevolent
All
dictator.
right.
And when I was a kid, I was like, oh, those exist,
Yes.
And I would, even though I'm 5 foot, small, tall, whatever you'd like to say, I really think of myself as somebody who's really big and big in heart, big in stature, and even though I'm tiny, and part of my picture is yes, I'd want to be seen as like a really like firm dictator, but that's not the type of leader that I am really. And so I think it'd be a mix of regalness and a bit of, maybe it'd have to be like a picture with many of me. Like, it's called when you put many pictures of yourself in one, it's called masking. So you take one picture, and then you leave the camera still, and then you stand in another position, and you take another picture. And I feel like I'd have like 100 of me, and all these hundreds of me are just the ones in. And that's because it's really hard to encompass like who you are.
I mean, that's
one picture.
No, that's interesting. So let's take a bunch of those pictures of Zan right here. Tell us about Zan through the lens of all of those pictures. Tell us a little bit about your identity, and tell us about the way you see the world through that lens of identity.
Yeah. Well, I'm 19. I'm a citizen of Lawrence. I am non-binary. I'm trans. I am Latinx. I am, what else? Let's see. I have a long list. I am Salvadorian. I am the child of an immigrant. The list is very long, y'all.
Pretty long. And so let's dig into a little bit as you think about that aspect of identity. So you mentioned that you're a citizen of Lawrence. When you go to El Salvador, do folks there see you as, and I think this is the right way to say this, El Salvadorian? Is that correct?
There's many different ways that can be said, but yeah, that's all right.
All right, I appreciate it. I appreciate you telling me I'm not wrong. Right here and everything, too. Would you identify first as an American or as an El Salvadorian? If you had to choose, right? You got two boxes, right? And we exist in these worlds where you have to almost check a box sometimes, all right? Which one would you select?
Well, I would say that's a very difficult question, but
I do that sometimes.
That's all right. I think that that's always been a topic of discussion, like a Salvadorian dash American, or is American dash Salvadorian, and which one comes first. And for me, I think that at my core, I am truly Salvadorian. I think that you can put me in Brazil, you can put me in China, you can put me in El Salvador, you can put me in Lawrence, but I'll still be Salvadorian, and that's something that maybe my thoughts will change, maybe my economic standing will change, maybe my dreams will change, but I can't change that I'm Salvadorian. And I think that's something that more than just where I reside, it's something that has been the foundation of how I grew up.
No, I get that. I'm living up here in Massachusetts, and at the core of my identity, I'm from Montgomery, Alabama, and that is it's rooted in me in a particular way because, I don't think you see a mass influx of folks going to Montgomery, but to me, Montgomery is a great town. It has its challenges and struggles like a lot of other communities do, and it's a place that I will always consider home. When I go home to Montgomery, I'm a bit nostalgic. I remember the things that I did when I was a little kid, or when I was, no longer a kid, when I was in high school or in college, or I'm at the age that I'm at right now, which is not 19 for the record, right, in a ways that I would engage in particular communities and everything too. And so, in terms of your work, is there anything you've ever done or anything that you aspire to do that you believe would capture the youth of the 21st century right now? Maybe a picture or something that would be symbolic of what does it mean to be, like yourself, a young person of color, a young person of color who identifies as gender non-binary, living in the 21st century. What might that look like if you were to take a picture of that?
Well, I don't think there's a particular photo, again, like I said before, right? But a part of what I do at I Learn America is that I get to work with schools, public schools. This is here in Massachusetts, here in Lawrence and in Boston, and I also get to work with, I have worked with schools in Florida, and I get to go into those classrooms, and after they've written their stories about being young, about being immigrants themselves, or about just being new to a new environment, and they write out these stories, and then we publish them on the website. But before you do that, we also invite them to take a picture, and that's what I do. I get to come into the classroom, and I come in with a nice camera. I come in with a nice background and a very nice lighting, so that everybody can feel special, and everybody can feel seen, and everybody can feel like, oh, this is my moment to shine. Like, I really did something amazing just now, and that's the feeling I hope to give them. But it's also the feeling that they give me. I feel like when I get to take pictures of these young storytellers, I get to see many aspects of what's going on in the country. I get to see what's going on in students younger than me. I also get to just share and be a part of what they're making of their own communities, and that's really been amazing to see so many different types of faces from all over the world, because it's definitely a national program.
So tell us a little bit more about, in terms of the leadership you've done. I know that you have you've worked in terms of in schools with young folks, for example, as you've already alluded to here, but you have also engaged them, and I'm gonna let you finish this, in the practices of what do you hope to see young folks, younger than you even, or even maybe folks your age, right? Where do you hope to see their trajectory through the lens of your camera, through your leadership work, your vast amount of leadership work that you've done with folks from here to New York to Florida, just at different places?
Yes, I hope that I really hope that it's that while we just, sometimes it's a program that can be year long or 2 weeks or even just a one day in and out type of situation. I hope always to leave them with something, and we always make art after we finish writing after they finish writing their stories. And I always hope that I can plant a seed of confidence. I think that's what I really want every young person to have. I want everybody to feel safe, to be themselves, and to have a little like kicking their butts to get it moving, to get that battery fueling, and to feel like, okay, my story is important, my art is important, and people are gonna see and have to hear my stories.
So when we think about these stories that are being told and everything, what would you say is probably the most? Well, we asked this question. Have you ever done or created any art that could be seen as provocative or political art that you find important?
Yeah, I believe that all the work of young storytellers in this age and time can be considered political, because politicians right now, they're doing a lot of censorship, and it's taking away the right of educators and young students to do the work that's needed to happen, that needs to happen. And by actively doing the storytelling, and by actively getting their picture taken, and by actively doing the community service that they do, they're showing up. And I think that's just the first step, showing up, because otherwise there's a ton of erasure. There's people that don't want to see how fantastic we are, that don't want to shine a light on the great work that's happening in my communities, and I don't think that's fair.
I mean, I love the fact that you said, use the word fantastic. And for those of you who are listening, this is Race Matters here at WJOP Joppa Radio 96.3. I'm here with Zan Argueta, and we are really talking about youth, art, and activism here in the 21st century. And as an activist, I can say I have done little to no artwork whatsoever. I'm trying to think if that's completely true, and I think it's absolutely true in terms of the framing and the things that I've kind of constructed, which is, yeah, I would say my actions, my movement, maybe that could be seen as some form or some semblance of art and everything too. Do you feel, as a young person here in the 21st century, that there is maybe a generational gap or generational divide between maybe folks of my generation or older in comparison to folks of your generation, in how you see the future?
Yes, I think that it's been really strange as I've been adulting. I turned 19 this September, and I officially 1 year into being an adult human, air quotes, and it's been strange to see how optimistic we can be and how nihilistic we can be as a human race. And I think that there's pros and cons to each. And recently I read The Sunny Nihilist, a great book, recommendation. And I think partially there's just I get worried sometimes, because I'm like, I want to teach everybody for example, to recycle, but then there's already been generations of trash that haven't been recycled, and now I got to teach the new people to recycle, and I'm just like stuck in between like these old people and these new young people, and it's just like it's scary, because you can't get everybody on the same page, it feels. But you put your grain of salt, and you ask your neighbor to do the same, and your friends and your family, it starts to look up a little bit.
There's nothing. Well, that's not true. There are a lot of things that drive me crazy. But, I always think about the simplest things we can do, right, in terms of thinking about the future of this planet. It's just something small as recycling. So even when I go to a recycle bin, one of the things that I do is I'll dispose of my recycling. And usually sometimes I have it in a plastic bag. That's problematic in other ways, too. We'll save that for another off-air conversation and everything, too. But then I always sit there and I look into the recycle bin at the things people are trying to recycle, and they're lazy. They're throwing like plastic and wasteful stuff, and it's not that folks won't remove or take that out, but that just adds cost, and it makes it even more difficult and more expensive to engage in that type of practice and everything too. You mentioned a book called The Sunny Nihilist. I mean, just the title, Sunny and Nihilist.
Yeah.
What was that book about? And don't, right, and my number one rule of thumb, another pet peeve, is no spoilers.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, no.
I'm a book reader. No spoilers.
No spoilers whatsoever. But give us a general idea of what this book is about, and I'll try to add it to my list, but I won't make promises because I don't want you to call me a fraud down the road because I haven't read it when you asked me about it. So, well, what was that about, and how did it reach you?
Well, the book, I went to a dinner party with my mentor, Mavro and Destiny, and he has a bookshelf of books that we can always grab from. And like most of my mentors always have been book lovers. And I grabbed this one, and it's about how there can be nihilism in everything. That from believing in a higher being to believing in aliens to believing in
I believe in aliens, by the way.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I do, but no one's told me that aliens don't exist. So
right.
Who's to say that there's no such thing as aliens, right? But I think there could be aliens. I've never met one.
We were the aliens, and it's really about how you can always see the bad in everything, or you can just take a moment to breathe and take a moment to appreciate and be grateful about the things you can control, like standing in the grass, or not having a panic attack by just taking some deep breaths, or reducing your stress levels, or even talks about love, how sometimes people can say, what is love? There's 1,000 love songs out there, and we're all heartbroken. What's going on? And it's really about how you can just have a 20-second hug, and it'll help everything.
I mean, and I've brought that up on the show before too, that to genuinely give someone a hug, it can't be one of those like side pat, quick hugs, right? I mean, it's something that makes your soul feel good much longer. So I can hear that optimism that's there and everything. Are you optimistic about the future as a young person, as a young activist, as a young artist? How do you feel about the future?
I feel optimistic, but like I said before, it's definitely been scarier and scarier as I get older, and part of what I like to think I have an influence over a little bit. It's like my siblings at home. I have a 7-year-old brother and a 2-year-old sister, and I just want them to learn how to read. That's
so right. Let's get back to the practical stuff there, right?
Yeah, let's just get to the practical stuff before I start like dreaming up like, oh, my little brother is gonna become the next astronaut or the next Barack Obama, whatever it may be. I think we all have really high expectations of the youth, but I really just want the youth to try to be a little bit more happy, and to be able to read. I think those are two things that I am optimistic about.
Do you think young folks, and when I say young folks, your age, maybe even a little younger and everything too, do you believe that young folks are optimistic in general about the future? Or do you think there's a level of concern? I know I'm creating this monolithic framing, right? You can't speak for everyone, but but when you talk to folks, right? folks your age, folks younger than you, do they seem excited or they feel this dawning of the future that's in front of them?
I think definitely a daunting feeling. I think that everybody I know is really stressed, and we're all a little too young to just feel this pressure, and that's something that I've been having to deal with and balance of like, well, now I don't have my mother's pressure as much, but I have the world's pressure in my hands, and I have the world to get to, and I feel for them. So I think I'm in the middle of the situation, but
Wow.
I think that my peers definitely are in the midst of struggling with thinking of how to be an adult in this pro-capitalist country that we live in.
And capitalism is very real, and it creates a lot of different types of stress that's there. I'm going to tell you, age does not deter the wrath of parents, the wrath of moms, for example, those expectations that are there. So I'm giving you a warning, right? I mean, it's been
I've been learning.
You've been learning. It's been a while since I've lived at home, and yet even my mother, she'll say something and say, "What? What are you thinking?" or something like that when I share a thought and everything. To which I don't mind all that much and everything. When you think about this world that we're living in, we have, of course, issues dealing with the political dynamics. We have elements of structural racism. We have things that exist that can create concerns. What are you most hopeful about when we think about the future? When we think about someone at this juncture in your life, and you think about your artwork, you think about the leadership and all the things that you've done, living in your identity, what are you most hopeful about, or something you're most hopeful about?
I think going back to what can make a person, I think as you get older, a lot of things are changing about you, and you can speak a different language, or you can live in a new place, or you can cut your hair or paint your nails a different color. But I think culture is very hard to get rid of, and I think I'm hopeful that the culture that we're making now, that I'm working towards and my peers are working towards, I hope is one that becomes more of a safe space, a place where art and the well-being of others is at the top of the list for everybody. And I really hope that when I go into classrooms, even I know that some of the kids are all working, and they have school and they have work, and they're trying to help people back home or in their home. And I think sometimes money is at the top of our minds and how to get ahead financially. And I hope that we all can take a second and empower ourselves to take a break and take a breather. I hope that's what I'm optimistic that our generation will do.
I love the thing you said earlier about just being able to go outside, maybe to feel the grass beneath your feet, right? And be able to breathe the air and engage with nature and think about the wonderful, optimistic things that are in front of us. So to be hopeful, right, about those things that are there and everything too. When someone says to you, it is your generation that needs to transform the world, that needs to make it better, do you feel like people my age or maybe even older are just punting responsibilities, or do you believe that it may have to be you and your folks, your generation, to transform this world that we're living in?
I think that it's about a generational torch. I think that's the only solution to it. And I believe, I know you have a great shelf of books at home of many historical figures, and through learning about history, you just can't erase the work that's been done and the work that I stand on, and I can only do my job because for example, my boss decided, hey, I'm gonna go make a film of these kids in New York who just immigrated, or the director at Elevated Thought who said, oh, I'm going to make a program for kids in to do social justice work and to do artwork, and if they didn't do it, then I wouldn't be here taking on the leadership roles that I am doing now. And I think that that's what I hope to do. I hope that I continue to make these spaces available for other people, and that people can really take advantage of them and take a step outside of their home and try something new. And it really comes down to that, I think, to having these spaces for young people.
You know, what I like about what you just stated is oftentimes we have in our mind that in order to be an activist these days, whether thinking about the activists of the 20th century, before the 20th century, they've been around for a long time, or activists here in the 21st century, that all forms of activism is centered around protest movements, which are important, or being in the streets and doing different things too. But it sounds like the way you're living your life and thinking about your leadership and working with younger folks and thinking about photography and all of those things, that in and of itself is a form of activist work and thinking about the future. Am I wrong in that assertion?
No, absolutely. I think that's my goal, for sure. I think that that'll be the only way. I hope that my little brother, for example, he's what you could consider an iPad kid nowadays, and I'm like, no, like, come on, let's go hang out outside, learn how to swing, or let's do some art. Or I showed him the studio at Elevated Thought where we do the work, and he was like, what? Where's your studio? Like, when are you gonna get one of these? And I bring that up often because if I hadn't shown my little brother this, then he would have never known that's even what my job was. He's like, what does Ann do when they're not home? They're just working. What does work mean? And I hope that's how the rest of the generation can see it, that we don't see it just as work, we see it as a service to each other, and everything that we do, and we can put passion into being the next leader of America, or being the next leader in taking out the recycling. It's gonna be either or.
Those small things. When I was your age, maybe just a little bit younger, I look back at a younger Eddie Carson, and at times I call that Eddie Carson naive. I believed that by the time I arrived at the status and at the age that I am now, that we would have eradicated racism. We would have eradicated a lot of vice and ills by now. Is that silly? I mean, is it hard? I mean, I believe that, and so, today I'm not as optimistic as I was then. I'm hopeful, and I'm hopeful for the future, but I really believed at that point that by the time I got to where I am now, the world, when it comes to issues of race and racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, all those things, the world would look completely different, and it hasn't changed the way I've wanted it to. So my question to you, all right, is what advice would you give a young person, a young Eddie Carson, who tells you that by the time I'm at this point in life, all of those things will be eradicated?
Can you repeat it one more time?
Yep. By the time I get to a point, or if you were talking to a young person such as a young person or a young Eddie Carson, and that young Eddie Carson said, well, by the time I am at this age or at this point in life that the world will look different. There will be no racism, no homophobia, no transphobia. We would have corrected all those evil things. Would you continue to encourage that young Eddie Carson to think that way? Or would you have to step in and say, we need to have a conversation? What would it be?
I think a little bit of both.
A little bit? Okay, how so?
I think that I think our generation is definitely not as optimistic as a young Eddie Carson such was, and I think there's room to revel in that. You know, okay, everything's on fire and everything's going bad and nothing is how we want it to go, and that's on a really large scale, and I think. That gives us a lot of pressure and a lot of anxiety, and I really believe that that anxiety when we keep procreating the human race, it manifests in the next generation, and I just would tell that young person just chill out, just take a breather, because don't stress out about it too much. If it's not gonna work out, then you can focus on what you can make and what you can do. And I think that if we all focused on that instead of just falling to that nihilistic view of like, oh well, everything's gone to the wind and everything sucks. Well, what can you do about it? Let's not be losers. And just stand around and not do anything. Let's go outside and just decorate the park, or let's go outside and make a protest. Let's go outside and sign some bills. I think that's part of the process. I tell to any person is part of the process is showing up. That's the number one thing. You have to show up. No, if you don't show up, who else will? And I think sometimes I see it in classrooms where there's this like cool kid, or like this kid like, school's lame, like I'm just gonna make jokes all day, and then it comes time to share a story out loud, or it comes time to take the mic and do your thing, and they're like, no, no, like I'm not gonna do that. Why would I do that? And I see that it's just the pressure they have on themselves. This pressure of like, well, I'd rather just act like I'm cool and not do anything and lean back and act like everything's cool, but inside like you want to do more. And I think that I tell that to anybody, like, don't just wait around and try to act cool. Like, it's cool to be a go-getter. It's cool to be a try-hard, air quotes, I think that's what we all gotta do. We just gotta try hard, and it's not the end of the world.
I like that. Where were you when I was 15? When I was 16, right? That would have been pretty good, because that pressure is real, and that pressure of feeling like you have to save the world, you have to do so much, and that weight is so ubiquitous that it makes you feel like you're being you're being swallowed, you're drowning in something, because then you get to a point where you become aware that I alone want to save the world, but I can't save the world. And I'll be the first to say, when I was young, some of those expectations, and even expectations in terms of how I saw the world and wanted to be optimistic about, the end of the isms, right, that are problematic and everything there too, were disruptive patterns in terms of enjoying the things you need to enjoy, but yet, to your point, which I love, taking on some of those things that you can control and operating within a space to enjoy it. When I was your age, and I'm embarrassed to admit this because it was a real issue, the one thing that I did not think about much at all was issues of the planet, the environment, of climate change. I wasn't versed nor educated on those things at all. I didn't hear those things as much as we hear about them now. And now it feels like sometimes it's a race against time, because if we haven't crossed that line, right, to really try to save this beautiful planet, then it may be too late. And again, I'm speaking for myself. I'm going to raise my hand and I'm going to be honest. I never heard any of that messaging whatsoever. Strange? Does that feel weird to think? Right? And I know I'm older than you, but it really wasn't that long ago when we talk about the age of the planet for us not to be thinking about it. That doesn't mean folks were not thinking about it and there were not conversations about it. In my world, it did not exist. We didn't even recycle in my household growing up whatsoever. And then in some of the communities, they're like, well, I'm not going to recycle unless someone's going to give me 5 cents for every can I recycle. It's not worth my time. Is that a strange thought for you to hear that coming from me, or no?
Yes and no. I think that there's always been that sort of feeling of like, well, why do I got to do this? Like, well, what's this new thing that's coming up? This word recycling. Like, what's this got to do with me? And I think a lot of people have that thought. Then they had it then, they have it now, and they still have it nowadays with this younger generation as well. Like sometimes if these kids that are coming up, they can't read and they have low attention span, then how are we going to teach these kids to recycle? And then you have the old dogs who can't teach new tricks supposedly, and then we can't teach them to recycle. So then what? Now it's just on me? Am I the only one with the brain and a heart? No, I think we can't fall back on that. And I commend everybody who continues to engage. And I think that's what it's about. It's a continuing to engage and to read and to educate ourselves, because there's a lot out there, and there's a lot of resources that are available if you just search it up. Even like I've gotten some great resources just like putting into Google like closest thing near me, and something will pop up. And I hope that that we can really come to realize sooner than later that we need to start caring about the world around us and the planet. And I'm somebody who thinks that that we are just one thing, and different people have different thoughts on what the world is, right? But me personally, I think that we are just one big thing, and that energy is continuous, and that when we die we continue to, it's like our own recycling bin, right? And so we want to keep our own recycling bin clean. Like it's our home, it's our planet, nobody else's. I think that's what it's really about.
I really like that. As we get to the end of the show here, I always like to give my guests the last word. There's no pressure here. But we just entered into a new year. It is now 2024, which means for the next month, I'm going to continue to accidentally write 2023. You know how that goes on, because it takes some time to figure that out and everything too. What is your hope for you moving into the year 2024 that you would like to share, that you're comfortable sharing with folks?
Yeah. I hope that in the coming year I can return to college. That's one of my biggest goals, and as I currently hold a scholarship, and I hope that I continue to engage like I asked other people to do, because it really brings me joy once you step out of this oh, I'm just gonna take a nap all day and sleep away the day. And once you step out of bed and you do something, I think that's my goal. My goal is to keep taking pictures, to not let my camera collect dust, and that's what it really is, to just not let the soul collect dust. I think that's what it's about. I hope that everybody has that in their goal, for 2024 as well.
My friend Zan, that was beautiful. Well put as you continue to grow in stature and become this big pronoun celebrity in the work that you're doing. Don't forget about the little people, the small folks such as myself, as you continue to move through. Thank you so much. Folks, thank you for chiming in to Race Matters here at WJOPLP 96.3. It's been an absolute treat having my guest here. Hope you'll continue to chime back in, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or any thoughts of your own here at Race Matters. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, right? It is 2024 as I get that kind of down in space, written there in the air and everything too. This is Race Matters. Thank you again. Happy year. Cheers, folks.
Thank you, everyone.